You're entering the future-ready CNBC TV 18 Ebix Cash Studio.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of our Festive Centimeter. On today's show, we analyse the latest travel trends to find out how India's travel economy is shaping up. International travel has seen a steady growth this year, with countries relaxing restrictions and reopening borders. According to data from Ease My Trip and ClearTrip, current bookings are 50% higher compared to the January to March period. Data also shows that passenger air traffic under the Vande Bharat mission has posted a sequential rise of 30% for September, and that's aligned with data recorded on Sunday, which showed the domestic air traffic count at over 3.27 lakh, which is just shy of the traffic count during the pre-COVID period. In fact, for the Diwali season, which is in the first week of November, forward bookings are 450% higher compared with Diwali last year. And before we get to our panel of guests, my colleague Parikshit Luthra is standing by with the details of the new rules issued by the government for international travellers who are coming into India. These come into effect from the 24th of October. Parikshit, take us through the details.
Well, all travellers will have to submit self-declaration form on the Air Suvidha portal. They will have to upload a negative RT-PCR test report as well, and a declaration, a self-declaration with respect to the authenticity of documents on arrival. There will be a thermal screening, and they must not show any symptoms of COVID-19. Now, India has made two categories. One is a category of countries called Category A. These are countries with which we have reciprocal arrangements on recognition of vaccine certificates of WHO-approved vaccines. Now, if you are fully vaccinated, then the traveller will not have to undergo any quarantine or additional testing. He can leave the airport and can just monitor, self-monitor for 14 days. But then, if you are in a risk category, in a countries at risk category, or you're coming from a nation, or you are not fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated, then you will have to undergo an RT-PCR test on arrival, home quarantine for 7 days, retest on the 8th day of arrival in India, and if negative, self-monitor for the next 7 days or so.
All right. Thanks very much, Parikshit, for joining us. So pretty much in line with the SOPs already in place. To take the discussion forward, we're joined by Pranav Sinha, the head of South Asia Division at VFS Global. Also with us on the show, Kapil Kaul, the CEO of the Indian Subcontinent Division at CAPA, Vipul Prakash, Chief Operating Officer at Make My Trip. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Pranav, let me start by asking you, as we've seen restrictions lift and borders reopen, the urge of Indians to travel outside, take us through the data and what that's telling us about the ability and the willingness for people wanting to travel abroad.
Sure, thanks, Shireen. And yes, we know with the easing of travel restrictions, international borders opening up, and people getting vaccinated in India, all these are encouraging factors for travel to international locations increasing from India. Yes, of course, I mean, though we are not in the privilege to disclose numbers of what visa applications are done for which country, but we very clearly see in June to September generally is a period for students to apply for their student visa and travel overseas to most of the countries that cater to student applications. And we've seen a steady rise in these applications going higher. I think it's definitely encouraging. It's definitely in the positive trend forward. The numbers are definitely, as compared to what it was last year, is definitely higher. There's huge pent-up demand of students to get to their destination courses. Many overseas countries are opening up for students. We also see Dubai Expo, coming up into the international events calendar back, which is very encouraging and positive news again in terms of leisure and business travel outside of India.
Yes, so students, of course, travelling on account of the start of college season, and, of course, leisure travel picking up as borders reopen and work visas being issued as well. Vipul, let me come to you now. As Pranav was taking us through the details in terms of visa applications, applicants clearly wanting to travel abroad, what are you seeing in terms of bookings and any specific regions that we are seeing an influx at this point in time of Indian travellers?
That's a great question. I think, continuing what Pranav was saying, and I think, Shireen, I'll just take a step back, and even before bookings, I think the first leading indicator is a search on the platforms, when people come and start looking at flights, looking at hotels, etc., etc. So very clear uptick. I think the two destinations which have now been pretty much favorites for the last, many months have been Dubai and Maldives, and they continue that way. I think we are definitely seeing an uptick for Europe in the last, month or so, where a lot of people are willing to sort of go there and want to go there in November, December. The interesting ones, which I think we are waiting for to see the surge, one is with the US announcement for opening up the borders for November 8th. There's a lot of pent-up demand for US, not only students, but, relatives, friends wanted to go there, even business professionals. So that's something we already started seeing in terms of bookings. And, you can see that a lot of new flights are even coming up for the US. I think the ones which Indians are like waiting for would be places like Thailand and Indonesia and Sri Lanka, etc., because these are typically winter destinations. I think there also we are seeing a healthy trend, but let me put this, that we haven't really crossed the final hump where people are still doing booking, because then a lot of it has to do with direct flights still not opening up except for the Vande Bhataram thing. So I think, the next 1 month is going to be extremely interesting. The old favorites are going to continue, US, etc., is going to open up, and fingers crossed for the Asian countries. If they open up, then I think we are going to have a bumper, December and January.
Well, yes, Asian countries, that's the expectation that they will start to reopen as well for Indian travellers. Of course, there are sandbox arrangements currently in place, but for that you require direct flights, which we don't currently have in operation to some of those countries. But Kapil, let me ask you now, international trends, positive, domestic travel, as we saw on Sunday, we've seen a record number, at least as far as this particular season is concerned. Is there now a growing expectation that India will move on removing restrictions, especially when it comes to international travel, and be more liberal in providing visas as well? That's the expectation now that industry is working with?
Yes, Shreen. I think, first of all, the traffic recovery, particularly in the second half of the fiscal, has been very encouraging and positive. We expect the build-up to continue, the upside to continue, so both for domestic and international, particularly on the domestic front. As you would know, the second half of the fiscal is the busiest period, and the upside is on expected lines. But the recovery trend is much faster. We are averaging for October, as of now, 275,000, around to 300,000 packs, which is still 30% below the second half average, or an yearly average of roughly about 400,000 passengers. So it's good that we're moving towards 70 to 80% plus category for domestic. October onwards, it's going to be busy. You may have a small dip in November, but December will pick up again. So I think the trends look positive for domestic. However, one caveat we need to keep in mind, that if we are expecting the recovery to continue to have a pre-COVID recovery, let's say industry is looking for a pre-COVID recovery, with the fare caps, it's not feasible to expect pre-COVID recovery. You have the constraint for growth in terms of fare caps. So till you continue to have fare caps, even though you have removed capacity caps, expecting the pre-COVID recovery, which was roughly about 400,000 plus on an average compared to pre-COVID, is not feasible.